Maguire and De Gea. I wouldn't even let them on the bus after the match. I get a taxi back to Manchester.
This fella Ronaldo is a cod.
Oh, yes! Well, I'll take you.
I'm 2 minutes in the ground and ask me to step back in.
Yeah.
Don't annoy me. Tell your mother on you.
Hello and welcome to Following the Lights. I'm Conor Hosford.
And I'm Daniel Pitcher.
We have a very busy episode coming up for you. We'll take a look back at the FAI Cup final, a reaction from both Dundalk and Shamrock Rovers.
The Republic of Ireland discovered their fate for the controversial Qatar World Cup. You can hear from boss Stephen Kenny.
Also, as a resumption date for the underage football is put off again, we talk about how some clubs and leagues are taking matters into their own hands.
That's all to come this week. If you want to touch base with us about anything at all, we'd love to hear from you. You can tweet us at FTFPodIRE, or you can give us a follow and a like on that while you're there. Or you can email ftfpod@gmail.com. And this podcast is available on Acast, Spotify and YouTube. So head over there, wherever you get your podcasts, and please like and subscribe. And we are coming to you from the podcast studios again in Dublin City Centre. Thanks indeed to those guys for having us back.
We start with the end of the domestic season here and the FAI Cup final between Dundalk and Shamrock Rovers at the Aviva Stadium last Sunday. In a sub-zero freezing temperatures and a heavy fog, Dundalk denied Rovers a first invincible league and cup double since the 1920s in what for neutrals must have been an entertaining spectacle. Once again, a cup final would go to extra time, but 2 goals in that period stopped penalties, once again being needed to decide the outcome of the destination of the cup. Dan, from the build-up of interviews we had last week, they knew this wasn't going to be a straightforward one, so it proved.
Yeah, no, it was. I mean, look, you have to say that for a very large majority of that game, Shamrock Rovers had it in control. I think you texted me during it, and I had to agree that the ball was probably out of play, like more in the first half than the second, but the ball was probably more out of play than it was in. And that was perhaps maybe down to the game plan that Dundalk had, was to just probably be as disruptive maybe as possible. That's what it appeared like to me. Now you were there in said freezing temperatures at the Aviva. It did very much seem that way.
Oh yeah, look, for the first couple of games, it's not games, for the first couple of minutes of the game, it looked like Dundalk didn't want to play. Well, I'm not going to say didn't want to play football, because look, that's what they're there for. Do you know what I mean? But they didn't, Rovers went out to play football.
Yeah.
They've done all season. They've gone out to play with the ball. Dundalk didn't really want to match them and play football against them. Dundalk kind of wanted to take the ball off him and just catch him on the hop and just catch him on the break. You know what I mean? Because we see how Rovers do it nowadays. Is they get as many up as they can when in possession. It works 99.9% of the time, the high press. But when you get caught out, you get caught out. I mean,
it worked in how they took the lead. A header down. Now I don't know what Rodgers was doing trying to jump. The header actually got underneath his legs, and that's how the ball wound up in the back of the net. But it's that pressure. They got that pressure on. They got it from they managed to force a corner. Corner came in, and the header came down, and as I said, underneath Gary Rodgers' legs.
It just shows how strong Rovers are from set pieces. Their 2 goals that came in the cup final were from set pieces. Both Jack Byrne deliveries in off the corner, both on the same side actually. 2 different scorers though. But yeah, so it just shows how strong they were in set pieces. But look, it wasn't their day. Realistically, it's hard enough to do.
It woke them up. I mean, exactly a year before that, Rovers had taken now more up towards the end of the game. They had taken the lead and looked like they were going to win the cup. Dundalk come back within. We spoke about it on the podcast last week. Dundalk come, a minute or 2 later, and they scored the equaliser.
Less than a minute, seconds later, yeah.
And scored the equaliser. It didn't quite maybe happen as quick, but it certainly did wake Dundalk up to the fact that, over the last number of years, Dundalk have always ended a season with silverware. I can't actually remember a season where Dundalk haven't won silverware of some sort, whether it be a league, a cup, or both, or the EA Sports Cup. So knowing that that's now in danger, that their season is finishing with nothing, it certainly did wake them up.
Well, look,
A scrappy, maybe would you call it a scrappy equaliser from Dave McMillan?
Yeah, but look, it's just the quality of the Dundalk side. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's since Vinnie Perth left, they're still the same team.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's still the same team. Like they
And they have been like, you had wondered what kind of Dundalk we would have seen when Filippo Giovagnoli took over from Vinnie Perth. Given his lack of coaching experience, coaching qualifications, we know that obviously he can't coach in Europe for another 2 years.
2022, 2023 is what I've been hearing. Yeah, but like.
So
it's
given that,
it's his first. Well,
how they managed then to go and qualify for the Europa League.
Let's put that into perspective first of all, right? He came in here never managing a senior team before. Like he's never managed anyone. I think probably over the age of 15, but he's rolling head of summer camps and all that stuff. No qualifications.
And we remember I think we were on a train when this news was confirmed, and we were looking at everybody taking the mick.
I think the whole league outside of Dundalk. I think
people even in Dundalk
probably
thought,
looked,
oh my god,
they looked at it in disbelief. I'd say because it's just like League of Ireland fans. You're looking at that going, what the hell? Like because you seen any players that want to progress into management, they're immediately put on a pro license.
See,
they're immediately put onto their A license, B license, whatever, pro license to get them where they need to be.
I think there's people like you and me, and obviously other people that support, League of Ireland, that are very proud to support League of Ireland. We're proud to support our respective clubs, and it's when light gets put on a situation like that, where a club has appointed somebody who may as well have done the FAI summer soccer school last year. That's essentially obviously he's been in the US, he's done whatever in Italy, like he's worked in like very, very minor teams, and it's that sort of slagging that the sort of the non-League of Ireland cohort who like to give it a bashing at whatever opportunity.
It's not good for the the integrity of the league.
And so the passionate League of Ireland fans in us, were like, oh,
but look, to be fair to him, look, he hasn't.
He's barely put a foot wrong.
Yeah, but there's still been questions asked.
Yeah. I mean, we questioned on the podcast last week, and we questioned at the very beginning of this, I think especially during the Europa run, of whether or not Dundalk were showing disrespect towards the league with the teams that they were picking. Those 2 weeks where there had been the Europa League and Airtricity League, and there had been 10 changes made because they were just in Europe on a Thursday night. It was the same situation, and you asked Jack in the build-up whether or not he expected the same thing, because there was a Shamrock Rovers game in that run that I was talking about.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's a cup final; it's going to be different. But they had just come back from a European tie.
But going back to that Shamrock Rovers game, the 4-0 one, Chris Shields was the only one from the European squad that played in that game, and that was only because he was suspended for the next game. Mm-hmm. You know, so there very well could have been 11 changes. So there was obviously kind of they disrespecting the league here over that, but like obviously it's a cup final. Jack, when I asked Jack that question, like I wouldn't say I immediately regretted it, but I kind of copped on to myself and like, what a stupid question, because you heard, like, if anyone
giggled,
anyone listened to the build up, you kind of laughed it off, and he goes, seriously, like, you don't think they're going to play a full strength squad in the cup final? I'm like, I know, stupid question, but like, look, you never know. Going by previous games, I felt it was kind of a question that kind of had to be asked tongue in cheek. You know what I mean? But look.
And as you said in the introduction to this piece, Connor, like for the neutrals, for neutrals watching, the way the game ebbed and flowed, particularly maybe in the set. Okay, yes, Rovers were playing an awful lot more of the ball in the first half. Second half, I thought, was a little bit more open between the two sides. Dundalk started to play a little bit more. They grabbed their equaliser after Rovers took the lead, and then, I'm still I'm not in total disagreement at the penalty, but it's one of those where you kind of go, you've seen them not given.
Yeah, look, it's. Do I go Rovers bias or non-Rovers bias here? Both. I'll give you both, right? As a Rovers fan, absolutely no way. But I'm gonna say that about anything.
Yeah.
But look, Rob Harvey was reffing it. He was in a fairly good position.
You were nearly marching up to Castleknock College.
Yeah.
Hello, Rob.
Mr. Harvey, Moontor, can I ask you a question, please?
What was that for?
But look, you said it. You said it. Like you see them given and you see them not given.
Yeah.
It's a kind of like, look, it's done now. What's said is done. Look, I can't change it. But look,
but I suppose
it was tight. It was a tight call.
It was a tight call. McMillan managed to score. You're there thinking, okay, can Dundalk hold on to this? No.
No is
the answer.
the answer.
And Rovers went and scored a really, really class goal. I think, what was it, 5 or so minutes later, 5 minutes after the penalty?
I'd say that. As I said, it was another corner from Jack. Pico Lopez put his head in some bullet of a header, to be fair. But yeah. And might I add, Stephen Bradley said at the end of the game in his post-match, he said that Pico Lopez, because obviously he was missing from training and matches for the past 2 weeks because when he came back from international duty, he was deemed a close contact with someone on a plane. So he hasn't trained. He didn't train for 2 weeks before that game. And he didn't put a foot, well, I wouldn't say put a foot wrong because there was obviously bits and bobs.
And there were other factors that went
Yeah.
against Joey. I said this to you earlier in the way in. Joey O'Brien being taken off injured was a massive moment in that game.
Yeah. Like, because when I seen him come out for the second half, he was still holding his side. And I was kind of looking at going, he's not right.
Yeah, he came off straight away.
Straight away. Like, I don't know if they tried to put him on at all or if it was already planned for to take him off. But he walked out onto the pitch and I'm kind of looking at him going, are they what's going on here? Like, look, that's huge. Like, if anyone's been watching Rovers games on whatever the stream is, because the stadium's been empty, you've probably heard Joey O'Brien roaring orders from the back line. Like, he's probably one of those. He's a massive leader on the pitch.
Oh, he's commanding.
Like, it's like you put, like, even in an empty ground on TV, you'll still be able to hear him. He's
And
commanding
as well,
everything from the back line.
It's his experience in the game.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like, he is probably, like, if Ronan Finn wasn't the captain, I'd say he'd put his hand up for it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, he's fantastic experience. He's a fantastic voice to have around the camp and the stadium. Like, even like, I think, like, we give out a lot about not having fans in, but one of the perks about not having the fans in, I wouldn't say it's a perk, but one of the kind of the pros is you can hear everything. Like, if whether you're watching it in the stadium, whether you're watching it outside the stadium, whether you're watching it on TV, you can hear everything. Like, they still have those pitch side microphones around the place. You can hear everything. Sometimes you can hear a little too much.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But, like, but at
And
the same
actually,
time, it's great to hear.
here's a question, because it was only kind of dawned on me when I was watching a Premier League, one of the Premier League games before the Cup final on Sunday, and there was, obviously you hear choice language in some of the games because there's no blah blah blah, and you can hear an awful lot more. And the commentary team saying, "Oh, we apologise if you've picked up any language there," and I'm kind of wondering, really? Like, you're watching live sport. Are you actually really offended by somebody using choice language? Anyway, it's probably.
Look, I presume, like I say, it's because it's Sky Sports.
Yeah.
They're such a massive platform. There is people that get offended by it. So I think it's
like,
just
you could be screaming, for F's sake, referee.
Yeah. But like there is people that get offended by it.
Yeah.
So as Sky Sports being Sky Sports, I suppose they have to.
Yeah.
Look, it is the game. Like to be honest, you'd probably hear worse from the stands if there was fans in.
Well, we were starting to see that now with 2,000 fans being allowed back into stadiums. I was hearing all sorts of roaring at referees and players and all sorts, which was kind of nice to hear again. But still,
nice to hear.
Well, it is.
Yeah. Well, look, it's better than that fake stuff that they use.
Because they were still giving the option. Again, actually, it was. I can't even tell you what match I was watching. I can't even remember. But at the start of the coverage, they were saying, obviously there's fans back here, and if you want to continue watching with the norm of, actually no, it was the Chelsea match because we were watching that on Saturday. And if you want to continue watching with the natural crowd noise, stay on this channel. But if you'd like to hear it with the fake one, you can turn up to something. Come on. Do you really want to listen to fake noise and you got the noise? Anyway.
I wouldn't mind, but the lads that are usually mixing them in Sky Studios are completely off time.
Yeah, they hit the button at the complete wrong time, and they sometimes hit the wrong button. Anyway, we'll move on. We'll get back on track, because obviously there was very little when it went to extra time, and in the first period of extra time there was very little in the way of clear-cut chances to win the game, and you're thinking, oh, tell me this isn't going to another penalty shootout. In the second period, that completely changed when Sean Hoare got on the end. Like Dundalk, they just
it was a quick counter.
It was a counter attack.
Yeah,
they found
switched it
another
on.
gear.
Yeah.
And Sean Hoare put a stunning strike past Adam Manus.
Yeah.
Before Macmillan
Complete the hat-trick,
and again completed his hat trick with like at that stage of a match to finish the way he did was just tremendous.
Yeah.
It was a great finish.
Because like when Sean Hoare scored, you're kind of like, okay, there's still time here. But like Rovers did on so many games before, well, Dundalk pretty much done to Rovers what Rovers have been doing to teams all year.
Season, yeah.
They've just
killed them off.
Killed them off completely. Look, it is what it is. I think, to be fair, it's been a long season for both teams.
It has. And it's still not over for Dundalk, who still have to play Arsenal.
Yeah, Arsenal on Thursday night.
Yeah, that's mental. Now,
but yeah, like in saying that, I think it was a long season for both teams. Rovers tired.
Yeah.
You kind of seen that as well when subs came on. Like the subs that came on, they're the subs that you'll probably see make a change. They make a difference in a league match. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. That they didn't make much of an impact in a cup final, which is it's strange considering it's a cup final.
Yeah.
But look, it didn't go their way on the day, realistically,
So we'll bring you a reaction from the cup final now, and we will start with the Dundalk camp and their boss Filippo Giovagnoli. And quite a funny bit at the start of this. There was, I suppose, a rumour about, because obviously this is his first cup that he's ever won. And there was kind of rumours and speculation as to what or how he might celebrate and trying to take the cup back to bed with him that night. And as you can hear now, he very much confirms that.
I'm gonna bring the trophy in my room tonight. I wanna sleep with it. It means a lot for us for all the sacrifice that me and Giuseppe we did in the last 3 months. And when you arrive in an environment where it's really skeptical, of course, then you wanna also prove yourself that you are at the level. And I think we did, and we deserve to be here. We deserve to be at this level, and we're gonna keep going to work hard for this club and win more trophy. And it's a really good feeling. But of course, the best feeling that I have all the time is when I see the players happy. When I can see them happy, then I become happy too. When this is how I am. And to see them so happy and work hard and achieve what they achieved this season, it's really something that it's more important than a trophy, trust me. We want to also show that Dundalk is there, that the team was there. It's not season, it was a short season, it was a short league. And I think the cup has the same value as the league. And you want to show that you are there, you're still on top with Shamrock, and you can fight with them in the future. Because if they were winning also the cup, it was a big, it was a big problem, I think, in the future, because they were getting more confidence. They were thinking to be unbeatable, which we showed tonight that they are not. So we can compete with them next year for the title.
Just a word on David McMillan. Obviously, to score a hat-trick in a final is pretty special at any level. He's really stepped up, obviously, since Pat got injured.
I compare him with Filippo Inzaghi, like kind of players that maybe you don't feel they are there sometimes, but they work hard without ball, and then they are so precise in the box and so hungry to score goals. Dave is an unbelievable player. It's an unbelievable man.
So Filippo Giovagnoli there, Connor, and I suppose quite funny. I suppose as well. Look, you're going to take immense pride in winning your first cup. We've seen all the pictures of the bus arriving in Dundalk town, and Filippo front and centre, holding it with a big smile. And as we said at the start, an awful lot of the question marks that were pointed his direction at the very beginning of this, he's going to be immensely proud by what he's managed to achieve as manager.
Oh yeah, especially because we talked earlier about the ridicule that was around him in terms of like when he first got the job. To turn that around, you're like, although he hasn't been in the sideline for Europa League, like okay, yeah, he's got you could say the team and the management team in a whole has got Dundalk to the Europa League, but look, he's done an alright job so far. Look, I'm not gonna there's still a bit more to go.
Yeah.
We'll see how he came in halfway through the season, so we'll see how he goes next season. But to be fair to the lad coming in, kind of blind into a new country, new scene, he's done well for himself.
What you've got to now think is how Dundalk are going to, I suppose, react to what is essentially an aging squad, starting to look like an aging squad now, with some of their players. I'm not saying all of them, but some of them, and whether or not new additions are going to be brought in, whether or not some people are going to leave for other clubs. There's one in particular about one of the goal scorers at the Aviva at the weekend, and where he might be next season. So yeah, it's all sort of all up in the air now. We've got all, some clubs have already done their business, some are in the process of doing it. It's this waiting game now because of the way the League of Ireland works. You can only really sign somebody up for a year. Jack Byrne may be the exception, but it'll be very interesting to see now what happens in the transfer window now between now and February.
Yeah, look, there's going to be teams that like we've seen already. There's teams that have done some great business already, but there's going to be other teams that are gonna like Sligo are now dealt with European qualifiers. So they might have to bolster their squad a bit to compete in those. And we hear about Waterford. There's turmoil, maybe bit of turmoil going on in Waterford. So nobody knows what the story is about players there. We've seen most recently Sam Bone. Leave Waterford. So we don't really know what's going to happen there. But look,
we'll just have to wait and see. The second bit of reaction that we're going to bring you from the Cup final is from the disappointed, as you would imagine, Shamrock Rovers manager Stephen Bradley.
Yeah, no, I thought we played really well. I thought they had little spells in the game. But I thought overall we played really well. We didn't take our chances, and at the end of the day, you don't take your chances in the cup final against a decent side. It can come back to haunt you. And unfortunately, that's what happened. I think we had enough chances today to win the game quite comfortably. And we didn't. Like the last goal, we're pushing on. We overcommitting. It's the last 2 minutes you get done, that happens. But before that, I felt we had a lot of chances to go and really put the game to bed, and we didn't.
Does it take any gloss off anything you've done this season?
No, of course not. We were chasing our own bit of history today. The double unbeaten hasn't been done in a long, long time. I felt the players were excellent again. Like I said, if we take our chances, Pico, Reece have one, Graham has one, Aaron Reid's chance. Really good chance. If you take them, it's a different game, but we didn't, and they hung in the game at times. And to be fair, when they got their chances, they took. I've always said, and I always feel it's better when you're playing games regular. It beats training. You keep that sharpness, you keep that level of fitness at its peak, at its max. But like I said, I think when you look at big games and cup finals, goals change momentum, and when they scored, it gave them a lift. You could see that gave them a real boost and something to hang on to. So I wouldn't read too much into it. I feel, like I said, if we take our chances, we score. It's a totally different game. Didn't they score? They get the lift, and when you score in cup final, especially late, you feel like you can run for an extra hour, and that happens. Adrenaline kicks in, and that's what happened. Good side with some really good players. We knew they'd everything out there, and they did, and so did we. Like I said, it just didn't fall our way today. But yeah, we know they're a good side, and they'll be there again next year.
So obviously, Conor, you were interviewing Stephen in the build-up to the Cup final, and understandably disappointed. He knew, though, in speaking to you in those interviews, that a squad were going to be very much up against it. Essentially what Shamrock Rovers were going for in terms of an invincible league and cup double, that's a target for any team to try and stop. And Dundalk managed to do that. So Stephen's going to be rightly disappointed, but in what he said about it taking absolutely no gloss off what has been an incredible season.
Oh, look, it probably took a gloss off the season for about a couple of hours after the game. and just a raw disappointment from it. But in terms of like, I'm following fans on, like, I know a lot of lads from Rovers and following for different fans on Twitter, Facebook, the whole lot, and like, yeah, okay, as I said, a couple of errors, okay, there's a bit of disappointments on, oh no, slipped away and all that stuff. But we're like, as a Rovers fan, we're still immensely proud of that team. We've won the league, like nobody can take that away from us. Do you know what I mean? So like when Stephen says it doesn't take the gloss off it. Realistically, it doesn't. Like, look at the bigger picture. It doesn't. Do you mean like last season, the cup? You know, this season was the league was the focus. Just happened that there was a double there for the taking. Yeah, look, it's the one that got away. But like, there's plenty of years to do that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's more years to go in Stephen Bradley's project. You know, so not going to jump ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. So obviously, to finish up on the chat about the cup final, obviously Shamrock Rovers, they get a place in trying to qualify for the Champions League. Usually in a season there would be your second place and third, or in this case, because Dundalk have won the cup, they would have been able to get into the Europa League by that virtue. Bohemians finished second, so they also get Europa League, and also Sligo Rovers. The fact that, you know, Dundalk were getting a cup anyway by winning, or by getting a place in Europe by winning the cup. Potential changes as to how that'll work for the Irish clubs next season.
Yeah, so I believe, going by different speculation and rumours going around about it, I think, yeah, so let's go back to Rovers thing. So what the speculation and the rumour that I'm hearing, you've got Champions League qualifiers. I don't know how many rounds you go through before you get dropped down to Europa League qualifiers. Then if you don't go so far in Europa League qualifiers, you drop down. So there's 3 drop downs. So Rovers have 3 chances. Well, more than 3 chances really. They got 3. They're going to, like, they can go from Champions League to Europa to Conference. Now, I don't know how that's going to work, because there's different permutations and stuff like that. But that's what I'm hearing. So it's going to be so Rovers, first of all, are going to be very busy in their European window. Dundalk, Bows, and Sligo, I think there's no Europa League for them. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
So I think they're just straight into the conference. Now, I don't know how this conference if there's conference qualifiers or
They just get in.
or what happens, because
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's not clear.
It's not very clear.
At
But
this
look,
very moment in time. But yeah, it'll be very interesting that Dundalk, having qualified for the Europa League this year, they play their last game against Arsenal, and that's it.
yeah. So I don't know, because I don't know what the story of the cup is. Like, does the cup still hold a Europa League place, or is that a new conference place? I don't know.
We'll definitely check that, and sort of, I suppose, bring more clarity on it in the coming weeks. But we have to, of course, wish congratulations to Dundalk on winning the cup. But we will move on. You are listening to the Following the Floodlights podcast. Thank you very much indeed for tuning in. Don't forget, you can get us on Twitter at FTFPodIORE. We'd love to hear from you if you'd like to tweet us, or you can email ftfpod@gmail.com. And we are also on Acast, Spotify and YouTube, so head across and like and subscribe and all the rest. We are here in the studios, in the podcast studios in Dublin City Centre. We'll move on now, and the draw for the FIFA World Cup in Qatar in 2022 took place this week, and for an awful lot of Ireland fans, based on I suppose the doom of what's gone before them in terms of missing out on qualification for the Euros, and also a dreadful campaign in the UEFA Nations League, a World Cup draw was probably the last thing that people were looking forward to at this stage, to be honest, but took place anyway. We did find out that we were in an ish, not, obviously Portugal. Cristiano Ronaldo returning to Dublin for the first time since he signed for Real Madrid when they played Shamrock Rovers.
Yeah, like
Serbia, Luxembourg, Azerbaijan. We avoided Wales.
And
that's
Denmark,
a plus.
And Denmark.
And
Gibraltar.
And Gibraltar and Georgia. So that's a plus. That's something.
Look, it's a doable group.
Is it?
Yeah, I think it is. Personally, like, we know, I think it's kind of set in stone now that Portugal will win the group. Let's be realistic. They're European champions, Nations League champions. They're going to win the group. So it's going to be a dogfight between us and Serbia for that second place.
You would certainly hope so.
Oh yeah, like Serbia. Look, I know they're a strong team, but on our day, we can beat them. You know, don't ask me when that day is. But like, it's going to be a dogfight. You know.
Yeah, I mean, it just like Portugal and Serbia had a sort of they were in the same Euro 2020 group. Yeah, Ukraine topped the group. Portugal finished second and Serbia in third. And they had a Nations League playoff and lost to Scotland on penalties. So I don't know. Maybe it's my sort of lack of joy out of watching international football over the last couple of months that has me so iffy about this. But look, you know, we'll have to wait and see. There'll be 2 games in March as well to have a look and see if we can finally score a goal and if Stephen Kenny can finally get a win. But in terms of, because there are a few sort of changes as to how qualifying for the World Cup will work by virtue of the UEFA Nations League and ways different nations qualify through that. So in all, there will be 13 spots available at the tournament for European nations. There are qualifying groups of 10 with the top place teams in each of those automatically qualifying for the World Cup. That's the way things have been done. But there have been, as I said, these changes where the remaining 3 spots will be decided. The 10 group runners-up will go into the playoffs, but there will be no 2-legged ties that Ireland will so often have found themselves in over the last while. And this is where the UEFA Nations League comes in. The 10 second-place teams will be joined in the playoffs by the 2 highest-ranked UEFA Nations League teams from the most recent tournaments that did not finish in the top 2 of their qualifying group. It all sounds a little bit confusing, but I'm probably going to have to read it maybe another 3 times before I understand it. I'm not going to read it another 3 times on this podcast. I'm going to read it another 3 times myself before. So in short, we will most likely need to finish in the top 2 in Group A in order to get to a playoff spot, with Portugal, as you said, likely to take top spot in the group. It leaves Ireland and Serbia, as you rightly said, battling for that runners-up position. So it's going to be tough.
Yeah, look, I wouldn't even kind of bother about this whole what happens if they, like, ifs and buts. You know what I mean? Let's just realistically say, okay, Ireland need to finish second.
Yeah, but I mean, I suppose in every single qualifying tournament, it's always come down to ifs and buts.
Yeah, well, eventually it'll come down to ifs and buts, but there's no point going to this. Thing hasn't started yet. So we'll like, for now, we'll say,
so
okay.
Prone.
Huh?
We're so prone to ifs and buts.
Like, we'll say for now, right, Ireland have to come second in the group. That's probably the main focus.
Yeah, pretty much.
If they don't, at least maybe there might be a fallback. Do you know what I mean?
It's like, I mean, it isn't like I was looking at some of some journalists trying to make sense of how the format will work. It's not as easy as it looks to try and explain. But we hope we've done that there for you there. So we'll have to wait and see. At the time of recording this podcast, the fixtures were due out and the fixture dates were due out. But as it happened with the previous World Cup and also the qualifiers and the Euro 2020 qualifiers, it took hours upon hours to try and get agreements due to TV coverage rights and all that kind of stuff. So no doubt that they're still battling that as we record this podcast. Stephen Kenny did face the media this week as well after the draw was made, and subsequently no sooner had the draw finished than the FAI had published their 2019 set of accounts, which was bizarre, but sure, look, anyway. But Stephen Kenny, as I said, did speak to the media. Now, obviously, he talks about the group and coming up against the likes of Serbia and Portugal and so on, and gives his general reaction. But also he was also asked about what we spoke about on the podcast a number of weeks ago about he was at the centre of attention surrounding a video that he had shown to players before the friendly against England in Wembley. And he addresses that issue basically calls it a non-issue. The FAI in subsequent emails said that the matter is now closed, but it had, for all the wrong reasons probably in England, come to attention, and here we were kind of wondering how it had come to their attention. But anyway, you'll hear it in Stephen Kenny's explanation. Here is the Republic of Ireland manager.
It's an interesting draw for sure. Obviously Portugal have been the European Championships and champions and Nations League holders. They've got great pedigree. Serbia, on paper, very strong. They haven't qualified for the Euros, and Luxembourg, checking the results, obviously a vastly improved team. Who've got 10 points in the Nations League, and also Azerbaijan are a bit of an unknown quantity, and we'll have to prepare accordingly. So it's an interesting game in a 5-game group, or 5-team group rather than 6 as well, which has some points. The concept of 3 games in the window is obviously a new concept. That was because of initially with the Nations League with the playoff. And then the Nations League, but I think the players traditionally have been used to 2 games in a window, and so the 3, obviously it doesn't look like there possibly will be friendlies on some of the dates, but it doesn't look like obviously we won't have 3 competitive games in the window, which lessens the physical pressure on players. For example, that's a help. Approach the games really positively, particularly in March, and try and have a good month. Have a good window in March, and I think we haven't qualified for the World Cup in 2002. It's 20 years, and that has to be our ambition to try and qualify. That's why we're here.
It was a strange fallout after the last 3 matches with everything that happened around the video, and you having to go and meet with the CEO to explain what happened. Can you talk through it from your point of view, from deciding what was going to go into the video? Are you still satisfied it was the right thing to do, and also are you surprised with everything that happened since then?
To be honest with you, the video was a non-story. I think it's it was a football video basically with goals scored by the players in training and goals scored in Wembley the night before, and essentially that was the major part of it, with some goals from previous Ireland matches against England, and some historical references, and I think that was it. And certainly it a lot was made of it, but it's very light on content in that regard. Yeah, it was a big surprise, and I think so that's something that came. It was a surprise, to be honest. It's we'll take it on our stride and we'll move on. I think we're not going to dwell on the situation. It's something that happened, and I think we're disappointed, but we certainly move on.
Yeah, the fact that there's details coming out from the sanctity of the dressing room, is that a big worry for you?
No, it's not a concern for me. I think the way I don't think the leaks were, intentionally, definitely not intentionally from the dressing room, and I think there may be people behind the scenes or elsewhere who want to sort of cause problems for the team, or who maybe don't have the best interests of the team. I think, but certainly, I have no problem with anyone in the dressing room. That's not an issue for me.
So Ireland manager Stephen Kenny there, Conor, and he's just putting it out there as bluntly as he can. He was surprised to see the information about how it got out there. Very peculiar as to how it did, but the matter's now closed and it's time to move on, basically.
Yeah, basically, look, he's just put the final nail in the coffin, really. He doesn't seem too pushed by it, which is kind of what we all wanted, really, wasn't it? We didn't want, we spoke about it a couple of weeks ago, nonsense.
Just,
nonsense,
absolutely.
really. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But
look, we'll just have to wait and see in terms of what this group brings up for Ireland. As we've said also on the podcast before, we want this to work for Stephen Kenny. It's been extremely difficult to watch, but we want it to work nonetheless.
Yeah, we want it to work regardless, whoever the manager is. But just obviously being Stephen Kenny, League of Ireland and all that, a little bit more so. We wanted to work for him. But like, just for the sake of getting those, I wouldn't say the glory days, but a bit more crack, a bit more fun out of it. A bit more fun out of international football. Bring us back to Euro 2016, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. We need it.
Singing to nuns on trains, fixing cars
Now,
with fivers.
I don't know how that'll translate in Qatar. I don't think there'll be many nuns on trains to sing to in Qatar if we get there.
No,
but
but look,
we'll have to find other ways
to be honest
of
with you,
having the crack.
I'll be honest with you, I don't know how many Irish are going to be Qatar when we get there.
Yeah.
Well, do you hear that? When we get there, Dan?
When we get there.
But
How the Qatar public will react to the Irish and their fun and their crack.
Well, not just the fun, the crack. Pale milk bottle skin lads going in
drinking
and vests.
Because an awful lot of that is against the law over there.
Vests and shorts and just like
not even vests to be too hot for vests.
Yeah.
Finally, in this week's podcast, we spoke a little bit about schoolboy football last year and last week even, and underage football. And how disappointing it is. The FAI's kind of response. They last week in the podcast we knew that they were going to be meeting government officials as to try and escalate a return for, I suppose, if you want the amateur and non-elite side of things. Unfortunately, that came without any results. So what we were discussing last week about a return to play date that was set by leagues like the DDSL and the NDSL. I'm sure the Leinster Senior League had their own map planned out as well for senior football. Now not going to happen, which is extremely, extremely disappointing. We're both coaches in the one club. In fact, our director of football appeared on national radio this week. He had written a letter, Daniel English, he had written a letter to government TDs and government ministers, not, I suppose, asking, but demanding that action is taken here. Because this is getting too much now. I mean, obviously you want to be able to follow public health guidelines as much as you possibly. We all want this pandemic to end. We all want it put behind us. We want to never speak of it again. But there has to be a common sense element to all of this. Yeah, okay, Dr. Tony wants to reduce the numbers. The health minister wants to reduce the numbers. The government. But God almighty, Daniel spoke an awful lot about, and we've spoken about it in spades as well, that these kids can be cramped up inside a classroom all day and they can do games, they can play football games, matches in PE lessons, but they're not allowed to do it in their club.
Yeah, look, you can go to a shop now.
It's incredibly deflating.
You can go to a pub, you can go to a shop, you can go meet your friends, whatever, but you can't do it. You can't play football in the fresh air.
It's just baffling, and as well.
Look,
what is also baffling, right, and it just it adds an extra baffle, right, to this, is that the GAA minor and under-20s championships are set to resume. How? If they're amateur, if the Leinster Senior League, if let's throw rugby into the equation because they're not allowed to play. If the amateur rugby leagues, the AIL, aren't allowed to return, why in the name of God? And look, I don't want to take anything away from one thing. This is to do with government. This is to do with the government have allowed the GAA to do this. Why? Why are we giving? Have the government given that allowance to the GAA to start back up again if soccer, rugby, and so on remains closed, that they can't do it, is insane to me. I have not been able for the life of me to try and establish why the GAA can and everybody else can't.
Yeah, look, Daniel said it.
Is this just parochial?
I don't know, to be honest with you. Like, nobody knows, realistically. I'd say the only people that know are those in the GAA and those in government. Yeah. Because they would have had to sat down and say, right, okay, this is how it's going to run, blah, 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 get permission and stuff like that. But Daniel said it, like, what's the point of having one rule for one? And then, like, this isn't taken away from any sport. Like, and we're not having a pop at the GAA
No,
here.
no,
Anthony,
no.
do you know what I mean?
By no means am I having a pop
But,
at the
like,
GAA.
it's
I'm just baffled as to how one got and one didn't.
You know what I mean? Like, if football can't go ahead, then GAA can't go ahead.
Yeah.
If GAA can go ahead, then football and rugby can go ahead. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's no point in picking and choosing. Like, don't just go, right, okay, there's one rule for you when there's another rule for the rest of you. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's... If this was the other way around, like, if it was this is football coming back and the GAA weren't allowed to resume, we'd be having the same argument, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, it doesn't make sense.
No,
you know?
It really, really doesn't. And I suppose that the message that Daniel is trying to put out there, and that he put out there on radio earlier this week, is to try and get people to lobby their politicians. If there was a problem with schools, if there was a problem with whatever, in years gone past, parents, they lobby their politicians. That's what they do. Parents, and from talking to parents on our own teams and parents from other teams, and listening to people just being completely fed up that their kids have nothing to do, the point was also made that kids, because they're just training for the sake of training and they're getting no matches and they're having nothing to look forward to, they're returning to their Xboxes. So all of this thing of, the socialising aspect, kids come down, they play football with their mates. They're now not coming down and playing football with their mates, but they're playing with their mates through a headset and an Xbox. Yeah,
Look, it's just adding fuel to the fire. Do you know what I mean? It's an ongoing problem. Like, what I might say is we might get Daniel back on in a week or so, well, soon enough, and we might actually get him to run through what exactly was said in that letter.
And I'd like to think that other clubs might jump on this as well, because this isn't just a Corduff issue. This this is St. Moctus, this is St. Kevin's, this is Shamrock Rovers, this is everybody. Yeah. To try and get their young people back playing again.
It's countrywide as well. Do you know what I mean? Like, the Kerry District League probably want to get people up and running.
Every league, Munster,
Everybody wants football back, just for the sake. Now, because Daniel said it earlier about the Kerry District League, they're struggling to finish their leagues now because they've got a high population to count for GAA. Like, so they're
and that's
do you know what I mean? So they're
completely
fighting,
struggling.
You're kind of fighting between sports here. So, like, that's another thing we might get Daniel to talk about, like the difference between sports, like, because he's got family down in Kerry. He said on Off the Ball, he's saying, his uncle was saying that, like, players are gonna pick GAA over football now, and you're not going to have, so we might get able to talk about that, how it might impact other teams around the country as well, so
I think it depends.
It's not just a Dublin thing, it impacts each area differently,
I think it depends as well on sort of where you're living, and like, some areas would have a typically GAA stronghold, some areas would have a typically soccer, some areas have a rugby stronghold. And if you're trying to clash with those, like, and players are losing interest, it's not good for anybody. It's not good for the mental health. It's not good for the coaches. I mean, we're sick and tired of doing rondos. We just we just want to be able to do matches. We don't want to do rondos. We want to do matches.
Yeah, well, look, it's not
that might be the campaign that we might start. Matches, not rondos.
For the record, we don't just do rondos in training.
No, we don't just do rondos, but it's just an example.
We're better than that. But it's an example. But yeah, look, just matches.
Hashtag matches, not rondos.
Yeah, I like rondos. Don't just slam rondos. I like that's my warm up for a match. Like, do you know what I mean? Look, anyway, outside of that, we'll get Daniel on. We'll get him to discuss it further, and we might get not that kind of campaign, but we'll get some sort of campaign going. We urge anyone else to kind of get onto your politicians.
Absolutely, get in touch with your local politician, get in touch with your club, try and form some sort of campaign to try and get back. And this isn't about going against public health guidelines. This is about, like, there's more to the world than COVID. Yeah, and unfortunately, COVID has taken a stronghold. We all know that. We all know the difficulties that COVID has posed. We all know that, tragically, an awful lot of people have lost their lives to this. There has to be the perspective that has to be put into that. But also, living with COVID, I don't think so.
Yeah, Daniel made that point. We're not living with it.
No,
it's when anything gets out of hand, it's shut down the country. But look, that's a conversation for another day. But it just shows, look, if the rule, not the rules, but the guidelines are up for interpretation. If especially with, like, if it can be kind of wiggled around to suit one sport, why can't it be wiggled around to suit another?
Yeah.
Why can't it be wiggled around to suit all sports?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because when it came back at the end there of the first lockdown,
in August time, wasn't it?
Was something like June, July, and August, when sport came back. When it came back to contact sport, I think it was August or something like that.
August, yeah.
But there was very little numbers across senior and Junior, like we had Mick Daly on the podcast there back at the start of all this. He's made the point that a lot of the COVID cases weren't coming from the sport aspect, but they were coming from like COVID clusters you got in sports clubs, senior clubs especially. They were coming from not just they weren't coming from the sport aspect, the training and the matches aspect. They were coming from the teams going to the pub afterwards, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like being in close, compact and confined spaces, and but look, again, it's a conversation for another day.
And as well, one of the things that might actually make sense, and okay, maybe it might not make sense in every area. I take the example of Dublin 15, where Corduff are based, and around there you've got Castleknock Celtic, St Moctus, Hartstown, Huntstown, Cloney,
Mulhudders, and even dipping into Dunboyne.
Yeah, exactly.
Ratoath and all.
The suggestion was made that if things were to return, okay, there might be from a government and from a public health standpoint that there might be concern over people carpooling and all of that kind of stuff. So when you're resuming, maybe do local derbies to start off.
It'd be like if this was brought up.
So if Corduff could play St Moctus or Hartstown, Huntstown or Castleknock or any of them, that's not too far to go. One or two of the clubs might actually be in walking distance.
Yeah, like it's another thing like that the DDSL might look at regionalising things.
Yeah,
like when things kind of look up a little bit more instead of just going all
like
hell for lead.
A Dublin 15 league kind
Not
of
even
thing.
a Dublin 15, North Dublin, South Dublin.
Well, yeah,
and
that
then
makes
kind
sense
of into a playoff kind of format. You have your league.
Because I think what was the furthest? Because we were actually preparing to face a team past City West. Who was that? Rathcoole. Yeah. So from Corduff to Rathcoole, it's a distance.
Yeah.
So if you were keeping things, as you said, north side, south side, that might help. I don't know. It's only a suggestion.
But and then even I know it's not something we want to do, but maybe leave the teams that like the Meath teams that play in the DSL and maybe the Kildare teams kind of leave them out of it for the time being until like
we can get back to some sort of normality. Well, anyway, hopefully it's to come. The vaccine's been rolled out. Let's hope it gets around quick. And we will, as you said, try and get Daniel English on. And actually, if you are part of a club and want to form your own opinion and send it in to us, you can tweet us.
Like if you want to get in touch, tweet us and all that stuff. Even send a voice note.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll play a voice note.
We'll feature you on the podcast, or even if you want to come on yourself, we'll arrange to speak to you
at FTFpod IRE, or you can email ftfpod@gmail.com if you want to do that. But that brings us up towards the end of this week's podcast. Thank you very much indeed for tuning in. Thanks to the guys at the podcast studios in Dublin City Centre for having us back again. We will be back next week for another edition. So until then, I'm Daniel Pitcher.
And I'm Conor Hosford.
And thank you very much for listening.